Okay, scholars. Augustine, man. Augustine today. St. Augustine. Austin, Texas Austin is another way to say his name. So, so we're going to talk about one of the greatest bishops, most influential bishops in all of the humanities. And in Christianity, a guy who really is really amazing to read. And I encourage you to read a lot by him, but that's a lifetime of fun. So I've given you a couple things to read, which are about Augustine on friendship. We'll talk about that. We'll also Augustine on the what did I give you? Just war theory, and then also some of his introduction to on Christian writing, which is just a powerful thing. So not on Christian doctrine. I'm sorry. So let's jump into this. This is the famous thing about Augustine. This is the struggle. Augustine's got your book, and keep this in mind: how the book and the Son come together, the book and the truth, the book and the light. Because that's, Dante, at the end of Dante in his Paradiso, is heading off this way too. That book is always, so this is the authority, the revelation. This is when we're going to talk more about authority. Authority comes from the church, but the church is grounded on the Bible. And for Augustine, he has this very strong biblical revelation. And then you see he's got his heart. So it's and he has just, in the Confessions, his autobiography, he has that opening line that the heart is restless until it can rest in thee. Until you can pull all this together. But we in the earthly condition are sort of struggling. We're ripping apart these two. And so that's what we're talking about today is in this humanities tradition, which he is so crucial for. He's maybe as much as Aristotle, Augustine really infuses so many of the disciplines here on campus. Not the sciences, not the math, certainly, but certainly the psychology and literature and theology and all of the humanities. How the head and heart are going to work together, okay? And we'll talk about this later in the class, but I have this vision of him as being the pocket knife, the Swiss Army knife of the humanities, on the basis that a sense of lowered expectations. This is what he views the liberal arts as. The liberal arts is a set of tools to baptize these tools, Christianize these tools. They're classical tools, they're good tools, dialectic, grammar, rhetoric, and then on into music and other things. But as tools, we have to remember that they're earthly tools. Language is an earthly tool. Mathematics, maybe the highest language, but it is not the language of creation. It is a language of creation. It is a language God uses. God still humbles himself to come into mathematics. God is not defined by mathematics. That'll be a sort of struggle with Galileo and modern mathematicians later on. Okay? But the lowered expectations that there's this earthly world. Augustine is really best in a sort of big picture way of taking Paul in Scripture very, very seriously. And especially these notions that there's two realms. There's a heavenly realm, and then there's an earthly realm. And they're entangled. And they're both on pilgrimage together to eventually reach this place. But in the heavenly realm, which God is going to ultimately fulfill, God is sovereign. God's the creator. Remember where Paul talks about God being a potter. You're just clay, And his providence rules all. God is completely sovereign. And up there, God is ineffable. There is no language. Anytime someone tries to use words to talk about God, to talk about love, to talk about beauty, they're lowering it. They're bringing it down here. So we have language down here. Up there is ineffable. There's no words. There's no language. It's purity and all sorts of things are going on up there. Okay. Now this is where all sorts of things that Plato had sort of like played with, these ideas of the ultimate truth. And, they're all up there, okay? They're in this heavenly realm. And then that heavenly realm chooses to communicate with this earthly realm. Of course, the incarnation is the key to it. But then there's also the Bible, there's the sacraments, all sorts of signs. And we're going to talk about this more with Bonaventure and stuff later on. Miracles. And of course, prayer. God is a person who answers prayer. And so therefore, we have this dialogue back and forth. And Augustine is this great proponent of prayer. Now, so in the earthly realm, there's two great institutions, and that's the church and the state. Both of them earthly. The church, don't expect the church to be perfect. Don't expect people in the church to be perfect. Lower your expectations of the church. We're all clay. We're sinners. There's ways of working. Everything we do on earth is like confused, and there's inklings of this. That's why pagan philosophers, it's good to read pagan philosophers. Other gods, the classical world, he doesn't draw black and white lines between all the evil and the good. He basically saying, no, this is a world of shadows down here, all with inklings of that up there. So we have to discern things really well. And then that's going to play into why, you can read Homer, and you can read Livy, and you can read Virgil, and the Aeneid, and other things like this. These are not just pagan things to be put aside. They can be useful, especially within the education. And then, most importantly, is what we'll talk about. There's a lot of ideas of just war and how we think of time on the earth. These are things that have to be dealt with very deep sophistication, but not with some sort of utopian idea, but also not with cynicism, okay? Not with skepticism. So let's run through some quick stuff here just about him and the iconography for him. Oftentimes he's depicted with his mother. His confessions, this autobiography that he writes, so beautiful. It's this powerful story of who am I, why am who I am. And basically he presents his whole life as an answer to his mother's prayer. His mother prays for him. How could God refuse those tears? And so you have Santa Monica, his mother, and then he's St. Augustine. And the two are often depicted together. This is some fun ones. I like these. This is nice too, she's real sainty. But I like this one the best, man. Here's mom telling this boy off. And a lot of the confessions is this sort of mom who's deeply frustrated with her boy. And that's this is the first great autobiography, the first sort of, we talk about Augustine or Aristotle writing a psychology, what are souls and sort of exploration of souls, but for a deep sort of like understanding of how everything is affected by a type of internal psychology for us, the will. How does the will work with the intellect? Things like that. That's Augustine, and Augustine starts this and develops this with his mom in the middle of it. Now, the other people are really important. Here's Augustine here. He's wearing a bishop's hat. These bishops, these scholar bishops, they're the structure, the force of the church. The missionaries, they sort of have pulled back from missionaries at his time, but the bishops are the folks who give stability to the church, scholarship to the church. This is Jerome. Jerome here, he's the guy he's not a bishop. He's wearing a cardinal's hat, but the thing is he's not really a cardinal either. What he is a scholar who translates the scriptures into Latin, and really the foundations of a biblically based Latin West, which is now Europe, come through Jerome, and then Augustine is the great sort of thinker, but Jerome supplies that Bible. This is Gregory. He's a pope, and so Gregory comes a couple hundred years later. These two are contemporary. They write to each other, And then this guy here is Bishop Ambrose. He's up in Milan in northern Italy. And so these three are contemporary. Augustine is converted and sort of really inspired by this bishop. And then Gregory is going to be the guy who really pulls a lot of this together and launches the church, the Roman Catholic Church, in the way that it will go. Here's another depiction. Here's a papal crown, which is, anachronistic. It's later. Here's bishops' mitres. And then here's the scholar. Don't you love this of Jerome with his glasses, Interestingly enough, he's not writing in this one. He's doing something. I don't know what he's doing. All right. So whipping along here, let's talk about he's born in Africa. See, that's another fun thing about African Christianity. Alexandria, Ethiopia. We're going to talk about other aspects of African Christianity. And so Augustine is an African. Okay, he's born in Thagaste, which is here in Tunisia now. And then when he proves himself to be quite the young scholar, and is going to make his sort of fame as climbing the scholarly ladder, and in that way he's a model for many academics today. The idea of like stepping stones out of graduate school into, and all these colleges sort of ranked on ladders, and we all want to go to some Berkeley or Harvard or Michigan or something, But the thing is that along this way he goes through a lot of philosophical changes, and there's this famous line, "Tolle lege." He hears a voice. He's out in a garden. "Tolle lege," which is pick up and read. This is read. These are command words, imperative. Tolle, pick up, read. Pick up, read. Okay? And then, here's the tolle lege. And very scholarly notion that books, read that Bible. And what he's going to do is he's going to flip open that Bible and he's going to point it, and he's going to read that, and that's going to be a revelation. This is something that a lot of people do throughout history. It's a very, very traditional way of, hey, God can work a type of like instant communication by open that Bible, point at a passage, and read it. We'll see that St. Francis of Assisi does this. Okay? But here you have the heart, the book, and the tolle lege. Isn't that a nice little thing there? And this is, I think this is University of Chicago, actually. It might not be, but I think it is University of Chicago, which is the tolle lege there. Okay? Here's more tolle leges, This is, it's this great story, the tolle lege, take up and read. This is a better picture where he just hears this voice, Then he goes inside and actually gets his Bible to open it up. And then out here, here's a nice statue, Here's a young scholar such as ourselves, what we aspire to. And then there's an Augustine with the tolle lege, pick up and read. And this is this power of Scripture. Christianity, Europe, Western civilization, the humanities, all writing is God-breathed. Theo pneumaticos, I think is the way it is. And so the thing is that there's this special Scripture, which is the Bible, but then there's all Scripture. And that's going to be the fire of the curriculum, the thing that pushes. This is the way God is helping us in this world of lowered expectations, We all don't have divine revelations. What we need to do is be scholars, and the scholars need to be conscientious. We need to lead the church. We need to lead the state. We need to lead society toward better ends. Now, the great danger, of course, is going to be pride when these scholars think they actually are better than popes, better than presidents, better than everyone else. Scholars need humility, and that's the beginning of the whole power of on Christian doctrine, where he talks about the liberal arts. You have to do humility first. But once you have that humility, this is the dynamism of how we know things. We have revelation through Scripture, and then we have to work with it. All right? Now, Augustine converts. He goes up to Milan, and he's impressed with this bishop of Milan named Ambrose. And that's up on the Po River here. And then he leaves. He goes up into the mountains. He has a patron who gives him a little castle up there or something to hang out with, a group of friends. And I've got you a nice thing to read there. Augustine is not some sort of radical individualist. He's not some, sit in my chair, come up with theology. He's always embedded himself in a community of friends, fellow bishops, his own son, who he has illegitimately before he turns into a full Christian. And that's one of the things that Monica is mad about and stuff like that. But Monica is there. Monica's usually overseeing the care and feeding of this group of young men. Here's his son, and here's Augustine and this group of friends. And it's in the dialogues of these friends that we get several of his greatest books. Against academics. Against academics, the academy at this time are cynics. They're skeptics. Okay? I'll talk about that in a second. And then On the Happy Life. Gotta love that. And then other books, that he writes that are beautiful books up there. Long before he becomes a bishop, he's actually running a type of ongoing book club, where you got some rich guys giving you a castle in the hills and the weather's beautiful, and we run an ongoing book club, and we actually have scribes which write down our dialogues. Very interesting stuff, okay? Beautiful stuff, great to read stuff. And then out of those things, his book of True Religion, which I think was written up there in Cassiacum. Why do I mispronounce that? It's Cassiacum. Cassiacum. And one of the great ideas is this: I believe in order to understand. And it comes out of grand tradition. This is out of Wikipedia, the credo ut intellecam, I believe in order to understand. And then there's different ways it plays out over history. Anselm was going to use this. Lots of people are going to use this. In here, what you have is on True Religion is this. Hence, all those things which we simply believe, following authority only. And here by authority, he means that system of testimonies, a dialectical system, which he talks about in logic, which goes back to affirming the eyewitness testimonies of Jesus and basically the divine testimony which backs the Bible. And so that's the authority. So we simply believe, following authority, we come to understand. Through belief, you come to understand. I believe in order to understand, okay? So we have other, this of True Religion things are sort of fun. I pulled a few out for you here. Here, God is the ineffable mercy. But this is a very interesting idea at the bottom. What is doubtful, believe until either reason or authority tells you no. So in a situation where you're just going to do your immediate reaction to things should be to believe. And this has deep Aristotelian optimistic roots. Your first reaction should not be cynical. And the reason, and behind this is that what is, it's a psychological sort of thing too, is many of us in the modern world, don't believe until we find reason to believe. And that's because our greatest fear is gullibility, really. We don't want to be gullible. Whereas in this situation, which carries through the rest of our course into medieval Europe and stuff, makes it a very expansive mind, is that it's better to believe first and then get proven that, better not believe that. And what that does is that it allows you to, you don't worry about being gullible, you worry about not believing what you should. So we're going to believe in angels, we're going to believe in all sorts of spiritual things and the sacraments and stuff like that because we believe first. And so there's a way of rationality. Do I go to rationality as a sort of cynic, or do I go to rationality as a sort of optimist? And it will take you two different directions. There is no one rationality that marches you along. And so Augustine is in favor of, remember, he's got the head and the heart and the Bible out there, he's in favor of an optimistic way of believe first. Then if you need to, if reason pushes you, then don't believe it. But believe it first, okay? So a type of worry most, not about being gullible, but worry most about whether you're not believing something you should. This is this doctrine of the new academy, and the academy is this skepticism, and it's Peronism, or I forget what, there's different ways of pronouncing that, but there's a system of thought which was completely designed for a type of skepticism at all times. Don't believe anything unless you're sort of dragged kicking and screaming to believe it. And basically the skeptic's method was to, okay, if here's an affirmative, I'm going to find a negative. And between the affirmative and the negative, you're going to find balance. And this balance is a type of never affirming anything. At one deep level, this is a foundation to modern, what's called postmodern thought, where we sort of are, always saying we're unstable with knowledge, always saying we don't know, which has great truth. But when you refuse to admit that we can know some things, then Augustine says you've crossed over into being a cynic, a skeptic who's really, he's just a liar because you believe lots of things. If the sign says don't touch 10,000 volts, you're not going to sit there and go, oh, I don't believe in the power of a sign, so therefore I don't, No, you're not going to touch it because you're not going to touch it, okay? So you will talk about this in class if you want to. It's sort of fun. All right. Whipping through Augustine, man. Woo! All right, now, Augustine's mom dies in Italy, in Ostia, the port of Rome. It's where the Tiber comes out. And she dies, and after that, Augustine has to sort of like go it alone and figure out a new thing. It's like a big, big moment in the Confessions when mom dies. And where he goes is back to a place, to Tunisia, what is modern Tunisia, to Carthage. And then he gets assigned, and a few of his friends are assigned to be different bishops. He's assigned to be bishop of, it's not a small town, but it's not a great town. It's a port town, an important town in Africa. And he lives there the rest of his life. And we have his writings largely because there was this group of scribes and stuff who wrote down all his sermons and everything like that. But then as this person here, he began to think big about the whole Roman Empire and wrote his great City of God book, wrote some of his greatest stuff comes from this place where he's the bishop of. And at the end of his life, before he dies, the Vandals, and this is where we get the term vandalisms, Vandals have come down and are moving across North Africa. And so basically his life, at the end of his life, he sees everything falling apart. Everything. The town is going to be destroyed. The Vandals are not Orthodox Christians. Arian Christianity is sort of a heterodox, crazy Christianity is going to take over, which is highly unstable. He really does see despair at the end of his life and looks it in the eye. But you see, that's, we coming later know that within 100 years, all this is going to work out. And Augustine and his works are going to be the greatest influences on the intellectual culture of Europe over the next 1,000 years on up into us today. So this Western world up here, this is the Greek-speaking East, and he wrote in Latin. So these are the Latin fathers. Jerome put the Bible in Latin. Ambrose actually wrote in Latin too. And Gregory, of course, is going to promote Latin. And so this is the Latin culture of Europe. And that's going to be where Augustine, and then Augustine's way of rooting himself in St. Paul, will be the foundation of the intellectual life of Europe. You're